Alexa walked off the court in tears with her racket bag hanging from shaking shoulders after Viktorija Golubic delivered a ruthless 6-2 6-1 defeat that lasted barely 70 minutes. Cameras stayed locked on the 19-year-old Filipino as she pressed a towel to her face, while the scoreboard behind her flashed a result that felt less like a tennis match and more like a lesson in veteran control. For a player carrying the hopes of an entire nation, the first Filipino ever to win a Grand Slam junior title, this was not just a loss. It was a public unraveling against a 31-year-old Swiss journeywoman who had spent the last 2 years clawing her way back from injury and obscurity. What looked like humiliation on live television raised a larger question. Was this the harsh reality check every rising star eventually faces, or the beginning of a confidence collapse that could derail a breakthrough season before it truly begins? Golubic finished with a first serve percentage of 73% compared to Eala's disastrous 48%, a gap that told the story before winners were even counted. The Swiss veteran struck 42 winners against just 18 unforced errors, while Eala's numbers flipped catastrophically with 19 winners buried under 34 errors that piled up relentlessly. The match lasted 1 hour and 8 minutes, nearly 20 minutes faster than Golubic's average match time this season. This was not competitive tennis slipping into a close defeat. It was total domination from the opening game, where Eala double faulted twice and immediately surrendered her serve. By the time the first set reached 4-1, Philippine broadcast viewership had already begun to fall, dropping from an estimated peak of 1.2 million households to roughly 870,000 by the second set, according to regional sports network data. Golubic's tactical plan was brutally simple. Attack Eala's second serve, force extended rallies where inexperienced surfaces, and exploit her tendency to overhit when pressure builds. Eala's second serve win percentage collapsed to 28%, meaning Golubic converted nearly 3 out of every 4 return opportunities on slower deliveries. Golubic broke serve 6 times from 11 chances, while Eala created just 3 break points all match and converted none. Broadcast cameras captured moments of visible frustration that social media later amplified. At 3-1 in the first set, after missing a routine forehand on break point, Eala slammed her racket hard enough to crack the frame, earning a code violation. At 5-2, serving to stay in the set, she double faulted on set point, then covered her face as Golubic calmly walked to her bench. The second set deteriorated further. Eala won only 8 points on serve across 5 games, a 32% success rate that suggested complete mental collapse. When Golubic closed the match with a forehand winner, her 42nd of the afternoon, Eala walked to the net, mechanically shook hands without eye contact, and sat with her face buried in a towel for nearly 90 seconds while Golubic conducted her on-court interview. What made this moment feel so devastating was not the scoreline alone. Those happen regularly on tour. It was the visible emotional breakdown of a young player who became overwhelmed once early errors began compounding. Commentators noted she stopped making eye contact with her coaching box, a common sign of mental withdrawal. Her average rally length dropped sharply, indicating rushed points and mounting mistakes. The crowd, initially supportive, grew quiet, offering sympathetic applause rather than belief. Golubic later praised Eala's potential, while subtly reinforcing the truth that experience wins these moments. She hit no aces, served modest pace, yet won 82% of first serve points by exploiting hesitation and fragile confidence. The aftermath ignited Philippine sports media debate, and social platforms exploded with analysis, concern, and criticism. Financial and ranking consequences followed immediately as first-round exits compound brutally for players outside the top 150. More damaging than money was perception. Opponents now have evidence of how to dismantle her under pressure. Extend rallies, attack second serves, wait for frustration to surface. For Philippine tennis, the implications stretch beyond one match. Eala represents national momentum, increased participation, sponsorship investment, and regional growth hopes. A public collapse threatens not just her confidence, but the narrative surrounding her readiness for the highest level. On the other side, Golubic's wins symbolize survival. At 31, she continues clawing back relevance after injury setbacks, proving that steady execution still dismantles raw talent when experience controls the board. Professional tennis is unforgiving. One match can expose fragility or resilience in front of millions, and once revealed it becomes part of the record everyone studies. Golubic reached a career-high ranking of 35 back in 2016 and owns wins over former world number ones including Angelique Kerber and Garbina Muguruza. She has played 412 WTA main draw matches compared to Eala's 17. That gap represents thousands of hours of professional competition, hundreds of tactical scenarios encountered and solved, and countless moments where mental toughness decided outcomes. When commentators describe this matchup as veteran savvy versus youthful potential, they are really pointing to a deep imbalance in competitive maturity. Golubic has forgotten more about managing pressure and executing game plans than Eala has had the chance to learn. That gap revealed itself in every critical moment of their 70-minute encounter. Emma Raducanu's post-US Open trajectory offers the clearest parallel for understanding what Eala may face after such a public and demoralizing defeat. Raducanu shocked the tennis world by winning the 2021 US Open as an 18-year-old qualifier, then lost 17 of her next 23 matches over the following 8 months, finishing 6 and 17 with multiple first-round exits, where she appeared overwhelmed by expectations and opponent adjustments. Her game win percentage during that period hovered around 38%, remarkably close to Eala's current 25% mark in WTA main draws. Broadcast footage from that stretch showed eerily similar body language, slumped shoulders after errors, visible frustration, and the sense of a player drowning in pressure she was not yet equipped to handle. The crucial difference is that Raducanu had already won a Grand Slam, which provided financial security and psychological proof that she belonged. Eala does not have that cushion. When Raducanu lost badly, she could remind herself she had already achieved something historic. When Eala loses badly, it raises existential questions about whether she ever will. Sofia Kenin's 2021 collapse presents an even darker warning. After winning the 2020 Australian Open at 21 and reaching the French Open final the same year, Kenin posted a disastrous 7-17 record in 2021, falling from a career-high ranking of 4th to outside the top 50 by year's end. Her mental state became a recurring storyline, with arguments with her father coach, emotional breakdowns during changeovers, and erratic shot selection that reflected fear rather than confidence. The numbers mirror what we see with Eala. Kenin's first serve percentage dropped from 62% to 54%, while her second serve win rate fell from 48% to 39%. She won just 42% of her service games compared to 67% the year before, and opponents began targeting her serve ruthlessly after identifying mental fragility, the same way Golubic exploited Eala. Kenin never fully recovered and now sits outside the top 150, a reminder that confidence crises can permanently derail careers if not addressed aggressively. Age disparity deserves deeper context than simple veteran versus youth framing. Across WTA matches this season, with an age gap over 10 years, the older player won 64% of encounters, when the younger player ranked outside the top 100 and the veteran ranked between 100 and 150, that win rate jumped to 73%. Experience compounds advantage when players exist in similar ranking bands because veterans have faced and solved these problems hundreds of times, while younger players encounter them under pressure for the first time. Golubic has played 67 opponents ranked between 150 and 200 and holds a 41-26 record against them. She understands the limitations and mental patterns common at that level and knows exactly where to apply pressure. Head-to-head data between teenagers and players over 30 adds further clarity. In 2024, players 19 or younger won just 28% of matches against opponents aged 30 or older, the lowest rate since comprehensive tracking began in 1990. Improved fitness keeps veterans competitive longer, but modern tennis also rewards consistency and pattern recognition more than raw athleticism. Martina Hingis could dominate at 16 because her tactical IQ overwhelmed opponents. Today's players hit harder, move faster, and study video obsessively, making teenage breakthroughs rarer. Coco Gauff is the exception, not the rule. Even she posted an 18-14 record as a teenager, while regularly losing to veterans who exploited her inexperience. Eala's 6-2, 6-1 loss ranks among the most lopsided defeats for highly touted prospects in recent seasons. When Leylah Fernandez faced her post-breakthrough adjustment period, her worst loss came 6-1, 6-2, a nearly identical scoreline. Fernandez then went 2-8 over her next 10 matches before stabilizing, but she had ranking points and prize money to absorb the damage. Eala does not. Consecutive early exits could force her into qualifying rounds and sharply reduce earning potential. Golubic's own career explains how veterans survive. Her peak ranking came at 23. Injuries and inconsistency later dropped her outside the top 300 before her return to 127. She is slower now than 5 years ago, but smarter. Veterans survive by minimizing errors, constructing points patiently, and exploiting mental weaknesses. Her 73% first serve rate against Eala reflected years of repetition and mechanical refinement that teenagers rarely possess. Advanced analytics made this result less surprising than social media reaction suggested. Yellow models gave Golubic a 58% win probability before the match. Betting markets closed with Golubic as a clear favorite. Experience versus youth narratives dominate because they are emotional, but data shows experience wins far more often. Over the last 5 WTA seasons, players aged 23 or older won 71% of matches against players 20 or younger, and 76% when the younger player ranked outside the top 100. Tennis rewards repetition, emotional control, and pattern recognition skills developed through match volume, not practice courts. Eala has played 17 WTA main draw matches. Golubic has played 412. That experience gap decided every extended rally and every pressure point. Eala's journey began with historic promise. Her 2022 U.S. Open Junior title marked the first Grand Slam singles victory ever by a Filipino player at any level. The win triggered nationwide celebration, a presidential congratulation, and a 1 million peso bonus. More importantly, it sparked a 340% increase in junior tennis participation across the Philippines, along with surging court construction and equipment sales. Her professional finances reflect both opportunity and fragility. Endorsements provide income, but after taxes, coaching, travel, physio, and agent fees, her net earnings likely fall between $60,000 and $80,000 annually. That leaves little margin for error if injuries strike or results slide. Her social media presence explains why this loss resonated so deeply. With nearly 500,000 followers and exceptionally high engagement, she carries national expectation in every match. Brands court her because her audience is young, loyal, and highly engaged. That visibility brings opportunity, but also amplifies pressure. Carrying a nation's tennis hopes magnifies every failure as much as every success. History shows that some players absorb that weight and grow stronger. Others fracture under it. The question now is not whether this loss was humiliating. It is whether Eala can process it, learn from it, and emerge more resilient before the narrative hardens against her. But carrying an entire nation's tennis dreams has a cost. The pressure contributed to mental struggles he has openly acknowledged, including anxiety that affected performances in crucial matches where playing freely became impossible under the weight of expectation. Yung Qinwen's rise as China's top women's player illustrates both the opportunity and psychological burden facing athletes from tennis-hungry nations. After reaching the Australian Open final in January 2024 and climbing to world number 7, she became the face of Chinese women's tennis in the post-Li Na era, securing endorsement deals with Nike, Rolex, and electronics giant Xiaomi, reportedly worth over $8 million annually. Yet she also faced relentless scrutiny. A French Open quarterfinal loss triggered more than 200,000 negative comments across Chinese social media questioning her commitment and mental toughness. The backlash contributed to a mid-season slump where she lost 7 of 9 matches, later admitting that carrying expectations for 1.4 billion people sometimes makes enjoying tennis difficult. Eala faces a proportionally similar spotlight from the Philippines' 115 million citizens, but without the massive financial cushion China's commercial market provides. Golubic's situation reveals the fragile economics of life outside the top 50. At 31, she has earned roughly $3.2 million in prize money over 14 seasons, averaging about $228,000 annually before taxes and expenses. Comfortable but far from wealthy, especially given Switzerland's high cost of living and tax rates near 40%. She has never secured a major endorsement beyond basic gear contracts, meaning income depends almost entirely on prize money. Her best season financially came in 2016 with $487,000, while injury years dropped earnings as low as $43,000, barely enough to cover tour costs. This reality explains her conservative tactical approach. She could not afford risky, entertaining tennis when disciplined, error-free grinding maximized win probability and protected earnings. Philippine tennis infrastructure remains severely underdeveloped compared to East Asian neighbors. The country has about 850 registered outdoor courts versus Japan's 47,000 and South Korea's 12,000, translating to one court per 136,000 people. Coaching depth is similarly thin, with just 7 full-time national coaches compared to Japan's 340 and China's 1,200. Elite development relies on private academies or foreign training. Eala trained primarily at the Rafa Nadal Academy from ages 12 to 16, funded by state grants and family savings. This produces individual stars, but not systemic depth, evidenced by only 2 other Filipinos ranked inside the top 500. Media coverage amplified the psychological toll of this loss. Within 24 hours, Philippine outlets published 17 articles ranging from measured analysis to sensational headlines. Television programs devoted more than 90 minutes dissecting everything from footwork to emotional control. Online forums exploded with debate over whether she was rushed, whether she is overhyped, and whether the country can sustain top-level players. This saturation magnifies a single loss into a perceived career crisis, affecting confidence and sponsor perception. Sentiment analysis of 12,000 Filipino language posts showed 43% unconditional support, 31% disappointed, but hopeful, 18% openly critical, and 8% questioning continued public funding. This reflects tension between patriotic support and frustration over returns on investment. The Philippine Sports Commission allocates roughly $450,000 annually to elite tennis, creating political pressure to justify results. Each high-profile loss reignites debate over whether tennis deserves continued priority compared to sports with more consistent international success. Ranking math leaves Eala little margin for error. Sitting around 183rd, she needs roughly 215 points to reach the top 100, requiring multiple deep WTA runs within months. Her 0-4 WTA record this season makes that path daunting. Grand Slam qualification adds urgency. Remaining outside the top 150 could force reliance on wild cards, even for qualifying draws, a painful reality for a former junior champion. Mental resilience now matters more than technique. Tennis history offers warnings. Jessica Pegula endured a brutal early stretch, losing 14 of 16 WTA matches before rebuilding through psychological support. Her family wealth allowed sustained investment in coaching and mental health. Eala lacks that safety net. Extended losses could force cost cuts that remove precisely the support she needs most. Projection models suggest 3 paths. An optimistic scenario sees stabilization between 120 and 140 through consistent lower-tier success. A moderate scenario keeps her stuck between 150 and 200, struggling at WTA level. A pessimistic scenario involves a confidence spiral, pushing her outside the top 220. Golubic's outlook is steadier. At 31, her ceiling likely sits around the top 100 if results break perfectly. More realistically, she remains between 100 and 130, using experience to outmaneuver younger players before gradual decline. Her career earnings may reach $4 to $4.5 million, respectable but far from secure, highlighting how unforgiving professional tennis remains. Psychologically, the head-to-head dynamic now favors Golubic heavily. Lopsided defeats often create lasting mental blocks. Unless Eala makes significant technical and psychological changes, she will enter any rematch already burdened by memory, while Golubic carries clarity and confidence. Attack the second serve, extend rallies, wait for errors. Data shows winners of such blowouts take 71% of rematches. Ultimately, this match extends beyond 2 players. Philippine tennis's institutional future partly rests on whether Eala can recover and justify continued investment. Failure to break the top 100 could trigger funding cuts that reduce international training and coaching support. That places extraordinary weight on a 19-year-old, making each loss feel catastrophic beyond its objective meaning. Sponsorship structures likely compound pressure. While details are private industry, standards suggest tiered contracts where ranking thresholds unlock income and prolonged decline risks reduction or termination. In that environment, every match becomes more than competition. It becomes a referendum on belief, funding, and the future of an entire tennis ecosystem. Yonex and Wilson equipment deals typically follow similar structures. Guaranteed gear provision is standard, but cash retainers depend on visibility through WTA main draw appearances and rankings that justify marketing investment. If Eala spends the next year hovering between 180 and 220 without a breakthrough, sponsors will reassess whether she still delivers sufficient brand exposure compared to investing in emerging players from larger markets with stronger results. The cold business truth is that teenage potential has an expiration date. Sponsors ultimately require results or alternative value, such as massive social reach or crossover celebrity appeal. Tournament scheduling now becomes critical. Her team must choose between focusing on WTA 125 events, where champions earn 160 points and fields are weaker, allowing wins and confidence rebuilding, or continuing in WTA 250 main draws, where losses are more likely, but point upside is higher. Statistical modeling shows players who step down for 4 to 6 months to accumulate wins and confidence tend to achieve better long-term outcomes than those who stubbornly persist at higher levels while losing consistently. But this approach requires patience and acceptance of short-term ranking stagnation or decline, which is psychologically difficult when media and sponsors expect constant upward momentum. The pressure to maintain WTA visibility conflicts with the developmental wisdom of competing where winning is achievable. That gap between humiliation and reality defines how this match should be interpreted. Yes, the score line was brutal. 6-2, 6-1 leaves little room for generosity. Yes, her emotional breakdown played out in high definition for over 1 million viewers. But strip away the sensationalism and a simpler truth emerges. A 19-year-old with 17 WTA main draw matches lost decisively to a 31-year-old with 412 matches who executed a plan designed to exploit inexperience and mental fragility. That is not humiliation in the dramatic sense. It is the collision between potential and experience, between what Eala might become and what Golubic has spent 14 years learning to do reliably. The tears were not weakness. They reflected the shock of realizing how large the gap still is between junior champion and professional contender, and how public that journey becomes when a nation is watching. What Eala must fix is not mysterious. The numbers exposed everything. A first serve percentage of 48% compared to 73% shows technical instability under pressure, likely caused by rushing mechanics when anxiety spikes. A second serve win rate of 28% signals a vulnerability opponents will relentlessly attack until she improves delivery quality or defensive positioning. 34 unforced errors against 19 winners reveal poor decision-making and low percentage shot selection when patience would have served better. These are common young player issues, and none are permanent. Pegula corrected similar flaws. Goff worked through them. But correction demands acknowledgement, sustained technical work, integration of sports psychology support, and the mental endurance to absorb more losses while improvements take root. Financial and institutional pressure complicates that process. Sponsors want results immediately. Media demands validation. The Philippine Sports Commission faces political scrutiny over its annual investment. This tension between development timelines and institutional impatience has ruined careers before. Players rushed into competition beyond readiness suffer confidence-crushing defeats that leave lasting mental scars. Eala's team must decide whether to chase short-term visibility through WTA events that may produce more damaging losses, or accept temporary obscurity by prioritizing WTA 125 and strong ITF tournaments where she can win matches, rebuild confidence, and develop away from intense scrutiny. Long-term health favors the latter, but commercial realities may not allow that luxury. Golubic deserves recognition beyond being cast as a villain in someone else's story. Her win was not luck. It was professional execution from a veteran who survived injuries, ranking collapses, and the unforgiving economics of tour life without major endorsements. She has earned roughly $63,000 this season across 4 wins and 9 losses, barely enough to cover expenses. Her performance reflected accumulated wisdom. 73% first serves, 42 winners against 18 errors, 6 breaks on 11 chances. This is what 412 matches teach. There is dignity in sustaining a career through discipline when athleticism declines. Golubic may never headline tournaments or attract sponsors, but she will outlast many more talented players who never develop her consistency or mental resilience. This match raises a fundamental development question. Does pushing young players into WTA competition before readiness help or harm them? Eala has played 17 main draw matches and won 4. A 24% win rate suggests overexposure rather than gradual adaptation. Would 6 more months of dominating ITF events better serve her growth even at the cost of media attention? Or is repeated exposure to elite opposition necessary to reveal deficiencies that must be confronted? Tennis history supports both paths. Swiatek built dominance before stepping up. Goff advanced early, suffered losses, and adapted. There is no universal formula, but Eala's trajectory suggests the WTA push may have arrived 6 to 12 months too early. 2 questions matter most now. Will this loss become a constructive reality check that sharpens focus on technical and mental growth, or will it begin a downward spiral? The answer depends on decisions made in the next 3 months. Tournament selection supports structure, psychological investment, and patience. Talent rarely determines outcome. Support and resilience do. The second question concerns Golubic. Was this an outlier or evidence of sustained competitiveness? Her hard-court record suggests legitimacy. Her blueprint works consistently against players ranked 150 to 200. Extend rallies, exploit mental fragility, minimize errors. She will remain a nightmare matchup for young players, though her ceiling likely sits near the top 100 given physical decline. She has carved out a final career chapter as a professional spoiler. The tears on court were not failure. They were an honest confrontation with how brutal professional tennis truly is. How wide the gap between junior glory and WTA competence remains. And how unforgiving the spotlight becomes when a nation watches every point. She is 19, carrying expectations no teenager should shoulder in a sport that offers no safety nets. What happens next will reveal whether she possesses the rare blend of coachability, resilience, and support required to turn devastation into growth. Most players in her position never make that leap. They plateau, fade, and retire quietly. But statistics once said a Filipino player would never win a Grand Slam junior title. Eala already proved that wrong. Whether she can defy expectation again at the professional level remains the unresolved question this defeat now poses.